Alright, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be something that's related to the video I just produced, which is the watches of Generation Z. I highly recommend you guys check it out, but if you don't want to, I'll just give you the quick summary. So I featured watches from people around my age, and a lot of them talked about their backstory of how they got into watches. So I thought today I would also do the same and show you guys why I got into watchmaking and how I became a watch enthusiast. In the background, I'm going to be cleaning my watches. So the cleaning process for me is quite simple. I have a lot of microfiber cloths that I got from, phone cases and things like that. So I just clean them using a damp microfiber cloth and then finishing it off with a dry cloth. And so yeah, I'll just have that in the background while I share with you my story. So my story actually starts about 5 years ago. Back in 2017, I was in the first year of university and I got this watch from my mom. And how that worked was because I think a few corporations do this, where basically if you work at the company for 5, 10, or 15 years, they'll give you a catalog where you can choose different rewards. And a lot of these rewards were jewelry, but my mom doesn't wear jewelry. So she actually gave the catalog to me and told me that I could wear, or I could choose anything I wanted. Now at this point, I didn't wear watches and I wasn't really interested in wristwatches at all. But because it was for free, I thought I may as well try and get into watchmaking. I'll choose a watch from this catalog and maybe I'll enjoy it. And so most of the items on this catalog were like fashion items. So there was like Michael Kors, there was some Kate Spade. I think there might have been a Citizen watch or two. But what interested me the most was this Birks watch. Now I don't have an exact picture of the one that I had, but here's one online that's pretty close to what I had. And so yeah, I really liked it just because it was such a good minimalist style. It wasn't too busy. The sizing was good because it was 40 millimeters and I knew that anything bigger would probably be too big for my wrist. And yeah, I just liked that clean design. And so when I got the watch, I was really happy with it. I wore this watch pretty much every day. I wore it to every single occasion, any single event. It was great and I had no complaints with it. One place in particular where I traveled with this watch was to Japan. So I went to Japan in November of 2017. So I had this watch for about 8 to 9 months now. And so when I was in Japan, something really bad happened. So I was staying at a capsule hotel. And a capsule hotel, it's kind of like a hostel where it's a shared living space and you sleep in these tiny little pods. And you keep all your clothes and all your suitcases and stuff, you keep it in a locker essentially. And so whenever I took a shower, I would put my clothes and my stuff in my locker. And so I would put my watch on the top shelf of the locker. And about halfway through the trip, I put my watch on the top of my locker, but I also put all my clothes and my phone and all my stuff on the top as well. And then after I showered, when I went to go grab my stuff, I pulled my clothes from the top shelf, but I forgot that my watch was still there. So my watch slid off the top shelf and it hit the ground. And the ground was a hard floor. And so that was about 5 feet. It was a 5-foot drop. And, a 5-foot drop's quite a lot of damage. And so what happened was that the indices, the hour indices, as well as the logo of the watch, they popped off of the dial. So they were just freely jangling around inside the case. So I was really sad, even though the watch itself, I knew it wasn't an expensive watch. It was a quartz movement. Birks is essentially a fashion brand, at least back then, or especially back then. Birks was just like your run-of-the-mill jewelry store. They didn't have fancy brands like they do now, like Rolex or Grand Seiko. Back then, they actually sold their own watches. They had the Birks branded watches. And so I wasn't disappointed because the watch was worth a lot, but I was disappointed because I knew that I wore this watch a lot. So I damaged it and I didn't know how much it would cost to fix. So when I ended up going back to Edmonton after my trip, I took it to Birks and I explained the situation. And I basically told them that if this watch is too expensive to fix, like if it was over, $50, then I probably wouldn't get it fixed because it's really not worth that much. But they took it in and they didn't actually send me a quote because they just sent it back with a brand new dial. And it was free of charge, which was really nice. And to this day, I don't know if it's because it was under warranty, but I didn't have a receipt and I didn't have any warranty cards, but they just did the job, which was really nice. I really appreciated that. And even though the new dial was different and I kind of missed the original dial, it's still nice that they did it for free. That was my experience with Birks. They're actually pretty nice about it. And even starting in 2018, it was around May to June 2018, the battery died, but they actually offer free battery replacements with Birks branded watches, which is even nicer because replacing it is between $10 to $20 if you go to a jeweler. So again, you just save a few bucks. So that was my experience with the Birks watch. I really liked it. Even though I didn't take the best care of it, I definitely dropped it more than just that time in Japan. I dropped it in the garage. I dropped it when I was studying. I banged it up. And part of that was because I took this watch everywhere I went. I wasn't babying this watch. I would just do everything with it. And so things were going great. But then in August 2018, so at this point I've had the watch for about a year and a half, I went on a run with a friend. And when we got to the park, I realized that I still have my watch on my wrist. And I don't exercise with my watch on. I also don't shower with it on, just because I'm not really comfortable with wearing a watch when I do these types of activities, especially with a leather strap. It usually doesn't work out that well. So when I got to the park, I took off my watch and I put it in my car. And then I went on the run. And then afterwards, we came back to my car. I drove my friend and we went to McDonald's and we just had some food. And then I drove back home and I took my watch off, or I took it from the car and I put it on a chair. So at my house, there's just like a chair that we have where sometimes I'll put my clothes there if I'm too lazy to hang it up. I put my watch on that chair and then I headed out again because I was going for a sleepover at another friend's house. And then after the sleepover, I went back home, and when I checked the chair, the watch was gone. And I looked all over my house. I looked in my car, I looked outside, but I couldn't find the watch anymore. So to this day, I don't know where this watch went, and I definitely don't have it right now with me. That's why I couldn't provide any photos. And the only explanation I can think of is that maybe when I got McDonald's, maybe I accidentally put the watch in the McDonald's bag and then I threw out the bag, of course. But that doesn't explain how I remember putting the watch on the chair. But it may be possible that I'm just mixing two memories together, because I've definitely put my watch on that chair before that. So maybe that's what happened, but I was definitely very sad that I lost this watch. And I tried to buy the exact same model again, but this Birks watch, it's a Birks business. So basically companies can get this watch for their employees, but it's like a corporate item. So the general public can't buy this watch. So I would have to somehow access that catalog again. But in the meantime, I wanted to find a replacement. So I started looking online. I wanted to find another Birks watch that was similar, but the Birks normal catalog did not have a similar watch. And then eventually I looked to Citizen. So I eventually found this Citizen watch, and it was minimalistic, just how I like it. And so I bought it. But after a few months, I started to realize that firstly, it's gold and black. So it was a bit too much gold for me, which I didn't like. And secondly, it was actually hard to read because gold and black, it's kind of like the Seiko Sarb 017. It's just really hard to see in daylight conditions. So I stopped wearing it and I eventually sold it. And then I bought another watch, another Citizen watch, and this would be the Citizen Pro Master Nighthawk. I like the Citizen Nighthawk because, I don't know, I just liked the dial. Even though it was really busy, I just liked how it looked. But the problem was that the watch was too big for me. Even though it technically fit on my wrist, the lug to lug was about 46 millimeters or 47. The watch face, the diameter was 42 millimeters. So it was a really big watch face. And also the lugs were 22 millimeters. So it just looked way too big on my wrist. So I eventually got rid of that. So I think the watch that really got me into watchmaking was the Seiko SRPC 97J1, the Seiko Presage, which was my first video on this channel. I think that's what really got me into watches, because at that point is where I got into mechanical watchmaking, which I feel like as watch enthusiasts, we're really aiming for that. Even though I do have an appreciation for quartz watches, I believe most of the fun comes from mechanical watchmaking. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into watches. And I think every single watch I've bought ever since the watch I lost, the Birks watch, every watch is trying to recapture the feeling of my first watch. And to some extent, it hasn't really done it, which is unfortunate. So I really wish I could get that first watch back because there's so many memories with it. But I guess for now, these watches that I got, which are objectively better, I think will have to do for now. So in some ways, losing that Birks watch wasn't entirely a bad thing because it introduced me to all the wonders of watchmaking. But it also emptied my wallet a lot because I think if I kept that Birks watch, I probably wouldn't have bought any other watch. So I guess there's pros and cons to it. But anyways, thank you for listening to my story on how I got into watches, and I hope that this gives you a better overview on how I got into watchmaking. So yeah, definitely subscribe for more videos, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.